Good evening, everyone. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, October 15th, 2024. Meeting details and the draft agenda were also posted on our Township website. Please stand to salute the flag.
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Ms. Prupus? Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Here.
Mr. Stoller?
Present.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
I would like to make a motion to revise the agenda to pull resolution 24239, 24-240, and 24-241, appointing members to the Citizen Advisory Committee on Affordable Housing. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller? Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda as revised?
Motion.
May I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the October 1st, 2024 regular Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the October 1st, 2024 special Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, reports. Deputy Mayor, do you want to start this week?
Sure. So the Environmental Commission wanted me to let everyone know that the final Open Space Trust Fund information session will take place Wednesday, October 23rd from 7 to 8 p.m. in the second floor auditorium at the library. The EC would like all residents to bring their questions and hear the opportunity for the benefits that an Open Space Trust Fund will open up for Millburn. One benefit of which residents may not be aware is that the county and state dollars that will become available to Millburn for acquiring and improving open space, playing fields, trails, parks, and historic places. The many New Jersey municipalities that already have an open space trust fund have access to these matching and other open space funds. The surveys that have been conducted over the past few years in Millburn show residents' resounding desire for more open space to enjoy all types of outdoor activities. When you vote this November, the ballot question for which you should cast the yes or no vote is the question asking if you decide if you want Millburn to have an open space trust fund. Please attend the October 23rd info session at the library to learn more. You can also find more information on the Environmental Commission's page on the Township website. And just a reminder, if you vote by mail, please be aware that the Open Space Trust Fund ballot question is printed on the back side of your ballot. So please don't forget to flip over your ballot.
I just want to add, I'm thankful to the Environmental Commission and Priya for all the work she's done all summer and fall to get the word out on that. Committeeman Cohen?
I don't have any reports. The planning board didn't meet because of Rosh Hashanah.
Committeeman Stoller?
Okay, Recreation Committee, registration for winter recreation programs are open. Programs are filling up quick, so make sure you get your go on Community Pass and sign up. Basketball leagues and the ski program is renewed this year for 6th through 12th graders. That's skiing at Shawnee. My daughter's on it, so I'm going to be up there on every Sunday. Special Improvement District. The annual meeting and budget introduction is this Thursday at 5:30 p.m. here in Town Hall. We're going to go over the final proposed budget as well as the key performance indicators we set up to measure the effectiveness of that improvement district. Town Hall Plaza, live music on Saturday from 6:30 to 9:30. And the new local business experiential Millburn Indoor Golf will have a table. So any questions, you can go up and talk to them about it. October 15th, Explorers teaming with the Paper Mill Playhouse for a celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month, starting at 6:30 at Town Hall Plaza, and there'll be storytelling and music from Columbia. Town Hall Plaza will kick off downtown Halloween event on October 31st for all the children. Then the tour of the town social campaign continues. We've had 20 businesses already released. Board of Education, 2 new students, representatives were sworn in at the last meeting, Junior Jackson Ruddy and Senior Zachary Galat. There was a huge turnout of parents and students to discuss the new grading system. The new student representative Galat reported that in his survey of students, 86 liked the new grading system. Sophomore Banager and DT Banagery submitted a petition from parents supporting the new grading system. Joint Fields, we're gonna have an on-site meeting at the high school to go over and discuss the feasibility study. That's on, I believe, Friday. Emergency dispatch, we're reviewing the lease and with more details to come. Flood mitigation committee. This is going fantastic. We have a meeting on October 28th, a public session at 7 p.m. at the Milburn Public Library. I really encourage everyone to come out and see the work that the Flood Mitigation Committee is doing. We're also bringing and exploring additional instrumentation for both branches of the Rahway and the Van Winkle Brook that will improve our data gathering capabilities. This gives us the ability to formulate potential solutions to the ongoing issue of flooding. So I'm gonna bring that up in front of the TC soon. And then we're also gonna install 7 video cameras at key locations. So during major storms, we have eyes on, which is very important. And I'm also gonna bring that along with the instrumentation. So big shout out to everybody on flood mitigation for making these improvements. And I wanna see everybody at the library on the 28th.
That'll be on next meeting's agenda. Right?
Yes. And then affordable housing. I could talk for a couple hours on that, but I'm going to defer to council. There's no lack of surprise every time we get something back from the Fair Share Housing and Judge Santamaro, but I will bite my tongue. That's it.
Thank you. So the Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board met last week, and we're continuing our safety campaign, and the school has been great to helping us to share the message. We're also going to try a Show Me the Flag initiative, if I said it right. Springfield has it on, I guess it's Mizell or Springfield Mizell, where on the corners, there's flags. I guess it's a stop sign there, and when someone wants to cross the street, Mr. Bombera, you had mentioned this, I think. You hold the flag up and you cross the street and then you put it on the other side. So we're going to try it in town and see how that works. Also, we're going to be putting a flashing beacon up at on Highland Avenue over by Christ Church. And then the chief just reported with the stops that they conducted over the past couple of weeks. So interesting, there were 29 in the downtown. There were 45 on Ridgewood and Whittingham. And, I don't have Hobart and Highland, sorry about that. And then they also did speed studies. And the average speed on Woodland Road was 24 miles an hour. The average speed on Parkview was 26, and the average on Mountain View was 26. So found that very interesting. I think that was it. Did I miss anything?
Is there gonna be education on the flag?
Yes, I think DPW is gathering everything and putting everything together, and then we'll figure it out from there, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. Just another announcement, the general election is on Tuesday, November 5th. For those who vote at Community Congregation Church at 200 Hartshorn Drive, due to the construction at the church, there is a polling location room change, and voters will be entering through the front of the church and will not be entering through the back as they normally do. Parking will be available on Hartshorn Drive and in the back of the church. Handicap parking will be available immediately in front, And voting will be at the same location and just in different rooms, and voters will be entering from the front of the church. So that's for districts 5, 8, 11, 14, 15, and 16. Mr. McDonald.
Not too much to report, Mayor, but just in answering the question about the show me flags, yes, once we have those in place, we'll make sure that we do a short educational video on that to put out via social, much like we've done with the flashing beacons. So just continue to encourage people to push those buttons so that they make the cars aware that they're looking to cross the street. Just
Just a question. Has there been a problem with theft with these flags? I mean.
no.
I drive through Springfield a lot and they're always there.
Okay.
And people do use them to cross the street.
Okay.
I mean,
It works.
Sorry.
Sorry.
It's like an orange flag.
I pushed a button and it flashes and I
Yeah.
still almost get hit. I'm not sure what the flag,
Well, when you're standing in the street and especially children, they're holding up these flags, the cars stop. And Mizell's, that's a busy road. So
It's-
it-
both of those things are about providing awareness to the drivers. That doesn't mean that they will necessarily stop. So it's important that step 2 of that, after you push the button, is to ensure that the vehicles stop before you let them
Right,
cross.
make eye contact and make sure they stop.
Just a reminder that there's Coffee with a Cop on October 30th up at the Short Hills Mall, Starbucks from 9:30 to 11:30 for residents if they'd like to go have coffee with the community policing unit. Also just wanted to announce that there's going to be a little bit of a change to all-day parking in lot 3. Just that we are going to make it more noticeable for those that utilize that all-day parking. We've had, although there is signage in the road that allows for all-day parking and there, that is directly adjacent to the pay station, we're going to put up some additional signage as well as paint the parking spaces a different color and have all day painted on the parking stall so that it is abundantly clear that those are the all day parking spaces. There's just been some confusion over there in lot 3, which is directly across from the Short Hills train station. So just wanted to announce that change will be coming forward. And then I'll talk about some other things when we get to the new business. Thank you.
Mr. Cannon.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. Just a brief fair share housing update. There's been a considerable amount of filings since our last meeting. I'll go in order of how things were filed. RPM filed an order to show cause seeking temporary and preliminary restraints. The temporary restraints that they sought were that 22 East Willow, the township takes no further action on that property until the return date. And they also sought an order having our mayor and deputy mayor appear in court on the return date to testify. We opposed the temporary restraints. The court denied the temporary restraints, so that was a win for the township. RPM is now seeking on the return date preliminary restraints. They're seeking again that 22 East Willow be dedicated for the relocation of the DPW site. They're seeking their attorney's fees, which we were ordered to have paid on the court's August 1st order. And they're also seeking all fees that they incurred involved with the township's appellate division filings and their opposition to those. The return date for that order show cause is currently October 31st. There was a request to change that date. I suspect the date will be changed, but we don't have a new date yet, and that request has not yet been made to the court. RPM was going to make that request either this afternoon or tomorrow to change the date. The township filed its second motion to recuse Judge Santamora. The reasons for that request are in the filings. So we move forward with again, a second recusal motion of the judge based on appearance of impropriety. Fair Share Housing today filed a motion to enforce litigants' rights. As to the motion for recusal, we suspect they'll have the same return date as the order to show cause. So whenever the order to show cause is heard, the second motion to recuse will be heard. Fair Share Housing filed a motion made to litigants' rights. They're seeking to have a special Mount Laurel implementation monitor be appointed by the court. That monitor is to determine the extent of the development costs for 9 Main Street, the existing sources of funding, and what the shortfall, based on the sources of funding and how much the construction costs would be, what that shortfall would be as the township is responsible. The court ordered that the township is responsible for the shortfall. There's a bunch of dates in what Fair Share Housing is seeking. Essentially, RPM will put its construction costs in. We then would have an opportunity to dispute that. The monitor would then come up with what types of funding that they think it is and make a recommendation to the court as to what the shortfall would be. The court would have a hearing on that. So the court, that currently has a return date, I believe, November 6th, I think. That date is also likely to get moved, and it's likely the court to hear all 3 on the same date. That's not guaranteed. Our office is working on opposition to the preliminary restraints from RPM and working on opposition to the order of force litigants' rights filed by Fair Share Housing Corporation. So that's where we are for Fair Share Housing. Is there any questions?
I have a question, I have a comment. So just to be on the record here. This dump project is basically gonna cost the town about $50 million for 100% affordable housing units. With no indemnification for town residents for any contamination or illnesses, sicknesses, whatever may happen on that property. Versus an alternative that we put forth, which were 2 locations for a total of approximately 130 units with 75 affordable housing. And the rest workforce housing for an approximate cost of about $12 million with no legal liability for contamination. I just want to make sure I'm understanding that correct.
Yes, those were the alternative sites that were put forth to the court, which the court ordered. The special master's opinion was that first was better than the second alternative.
And this is a special master that actually came out to Millburn and visited Frank and myself, and we walked the properties and we showed him the benefits of those alternative sites. That same special master?
If I may close, yes, I was there with you also. And it was in our papers, and you, the deputy mayor, Mr. McDonald, and myself all certified to the fact that we took that walk with the special master, and he pointed out, he actually pointed out the accolades of the new sites and the benefits of them, and was very critical of the 9 Main Street.
Correct,
site.
so we got 12 versus 50 million, no possibility of legal ramifications over. And if I might say as well, it'd be done in a much more timely fashion than the current site, which would benefit the constituents or the end users of those apartments.
And that was Milburn's position, that was the position we stated to the court, and I think that that's objectively accurate.
Okay, and just one other point, just boggles my mind a little bit. Did the judge come out and walk those properties, or did Mr. Josh Bowers from Fair Share Housing come out and walk those properties, or anybody else involved in the case, or was it simply Mr. Banish who came out, gave accolades about the properties, we testified that, we certified that, et cetera? Did anyone else look at those sites?
I'm sworn, I'm also for the court. So the court was invited, and the court was highly encouraged in each of yours, the deputy mayor's, and Mr. McDonald's certification, along with our brief, to come out and look at the sites. And I think given the impact to this community, and how long this project will likely last, and it's going to change, the characteristics of the downtown, I don't think it was an unreasonable request to ask the court to come and actually look at the properties before
Okay.
making a decision. I think it was a very reasonable request, and also given Milburn's proximity to North.
Right, and she said plainly no. Okay.
Well, no, she didn't respond. There was no response.
No
to that.
response, okay. Just want to get that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald, did
Well,
you want to add?
stand.
Yeah, sorry, I just forgot 2 brief reports. One is that the special investigation that was asked for by Mr. Robertson from O'Toole Scrivo has been completed. I sent that to the Township Committee. I think we're gonna allow, it was just today that I had sent to the committee, so we'll allow the committee to digest that report, ask any questions that they may have, but could also then let me know whether where you'd like to go with that report from there.
Can that be discussed in the next closed session?
Sure, absolutely. And then just lastly, that we have we are in production of the signage for the 9/11 memorial, as well as some new signage at Brookside and Old Short Hills Road. And we are currently working on the copy for some new signage at Lot 7 and Lot 3. Again, to clarify and avoid some confusion in those parking lots, but I just wanted to provide an update on that.
Thank you. Okay. Public comment. When invited to speak, to offer your comments, please come to the lectern and clearly state your name and whether you are a Milburn resident and/or property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and are readily available to the public. For the convenience of our community, there is a remote option. If you called in and would like to speak, would like to comment, press *6 now. If you are attending by a computer or electronic device, please click the raise hand button and be sure your video is on when you comment. All members of the public wishing to speak will be put into the queue to address the committee. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. You will be prompted when there is 30 seconds remaining. A reminder, this is not a time for dialogue or to debate a matter, and this is a time during our business meeting for the public to offer comments. I will now open the public comment period.
Good evening. Hello,
Hi.
good-looking TC members. I don't know what the O'Toole Scrivo investigative report is. I don't know, are we allowed to know that? If we are, can you give some more clarity about what that involves? I like the idea of the flags and the lights for pedestrians crossing the street. It's great. We need, pedestrian safety. But I really like the idea of the ticket blitz that Frank had brought up recently, and it sounds like that's happening. As much as pedestrians need to make sure they're safe and cars are stopped before they cross the street, it really should be on the drivers to slow down. And I think the best way to do that is to really ticket people. I know that the police don't love to do it to our residents, but it's really necessary at this point. I had asked for an update on Essex Street, the one-way situation. I was just curious where that stands. I don't know what we're waiting on for that. I'm just curious. I met somebody in the audience tonight and I told him I was gonna embarrass him and just give him a shout out. So we have a resident here named Joe G, who's sitting in the back. We were chatting before the meeting and I asked him what he was doing here because I said it's always the same old people, and he said he's taking a class to get his master's in social work, and this was a requirement, a homework assignment. So I thought we should all acknowledge him, and I encouraged him to come to more meetings. And then one last thing, it might not be that popular, but I do not know Carrie Heller at all. I know he owns property in town, but he really had me intrigued when he got up here last time and spoke about town hall and whether we really should be proceeding with renovating this building or maybe thinking about alternates. I haven't really followed this that much, but he really had some salient points. Also, I was thinking if you want that town hall plaza to be permanently closed because people seem to like it, I thought it would be really great if there were more commercial activity around Town Hall Plaza. And if, I don't know where this building would be moved to. Again, I haven't followed it that much, but I feel like many times decisions are made and then they have to be reversed like complete streets. So I was just thinking maybe you want to slow that down a bit and make sure that the renovation is really the best way forward. I trust you guys up there. You always do your homeworks, but just some food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
Charles Bambara, the 27-year resident of Melbourne Short Hills. I just want to make a public statement to the court of Judge Santamioro. Hopefully she reads these or hears about them. Judge, you ran a kangaroo court with a foregone conclusion. I'm a private citizen. I'm not a lawyer, but my God, your bias was blatant and for everyone to see. And if you can't do the right thing and recuse yourself, there's something seriously flawed in your logic and your morals. But I appeal to you to to consider our motion, our township motion. It's well-founded, and as a private citizen, and there's a lot of residents that share my concern. This was a biased case. You ran a kangaroo court, step down and step aside.
Thank you.
Good evening, Phil Kirsch, Milburn resident. I had a question about the website. I was looking at the township website and I might have missed something, but no longer shows the terms for township committee members the way it does for advisory committees, all the other committees. And I think it may have been some updates on it. It looks a little bit different, but I no longer see the terms. I think that's really helpful information to have. So if you could look into that, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Dave Cosgrove, resident. If I understood the motion to amend the agenda, you knocked off the appointments of the Fair Share Committee folks. That has been continually delayed, the staffing, I'll call it, of the Fair Share Committee. It's getting to the point where it's a little silly. It's getting to the point where you're gonna affect the committee's ability to effectively act. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Jeffrey Feld, more than 32 resident of the Poet section. As my custom, I sent a heads up letter and comments to the council. One thing that would help us in the fair share housing litigation is the responses to the calendar year 2024 best practices inventory questionnaire due October 25. I sent you the questionnaire. The first 8, there's new 8 questions regarding affordable housing. And there's also a question regarding the special improvement district. And I think that would help us when we go to the court to show what our responses are, because I think they want to show how we have reacted in rebutting the presumption that we've done nothing. I asked about the status of the amended paper mill playhouse sale leaseback agreement. Since the last meeting, I discovered when I looked at the calendar year 2022 audit, there was a reference on approximately page 32, 33 regarding the restatement of the 2021 financial statement for about $1.4 million. The world I come from, that's a material a development usually requiring stickering. And I'd like to know what caused a restatement of our financial statement. Because when I did find that and I caused the financial statement to be restated in orange, that usually raises a lot of red flags. Talking about red flags, going to your consent agenda, the bill list. There's like 3 checks I listed in my list. One was to Casey and Keller and Lindemann. They're getting paid for work that they did last year. Why the delay and what are they doing for? Also, there's a payment to O'Toole Scrivo. Were they ever retained by resolution, or was there ever a engagement letter signed? Especially with this investigation, I was never contacted. I think I'm probably a primary fact witness because I represented the defendant as to what happened, and I find it pretty outrageous that I was not contacted. Going to the non-consent agenda, can we have a little explanation as to the Metropolitan Health Insurance Fund resolution? I understand because the costs are, but to give the community a feel of what the savings are and how premiums have gone out through the roof and when will it go effective and what are anticipated statements. I wish I had more time to talk about the Woodland developer agreement. I sent you today about some suggestions as to language that's to be brought in and elaborated on. One is taxes during construction. There should be a specific paragraph saying what is the amount that you believe the assessment is going to be, and that we understand that the property will be reassessed when a CO is issued.
Thank you.
You know, this is too more serious. I think I should have a little more
Thank
opportunity
you.
to talk.
You'll have another opportunity.
No, but
Thank
you'll have voted on something and before that.
Hi, Richie Cyber, Township resident. Thank you, Committeeman Ben Stoller, for explaining in detail. So the way I understood it, we should, Millburn residents, backstop a $50 million project, pay legal fees to RPM and the Fair Share Housing, have full liability for if somebody gets sick, relocate our town dump. So and in exchange for that, RPM will pay $1 and own this property forever. And at the end of 30 years, the affordable housing units can all become retail or full market, which of course he will sell the thing within the first day of it being built, cash out for a lot of money. And we'll be holding the bag looking like fools that we built the building. We don't own any of it. We can't put the people in. We can't pick who lives there. It's a pilot program, so no money's going to the schools. It's not a senior citizen building where there would be no children going to the schools. Old Short Hills Road, which is clogged up every day right now with no construction vehicles, seems so silly. So I read today the 12 demands that RPM and Fair Share Housing, I'm sure you also read the 12 demands in that thing. And I tried to take myself and not be a resident of Millburn and say, well, maybe that's somebody else's town. And I read one after another and I was like, I really cannot believe that somebody had the balls to even ask those 12 things. And to have a signature ready for the judge to sign it. Like, my goodness. I am not a lawyer. I wish I was one for this case alone, though. Go back to school, help you on this one, but I don't see how the judge could sign that. I mean, I just don't see it. One more thing. I went to Trader Joe's recently and I saw that there were some people asking for donations for food or whatever. I guess they aren't living so good or whatever, they have a little issue. Are there laws in the town that let you stand on corners and in front of businesses? And I don't know, I mean, I don't want to be judged on that. Thank you.
Hi, Jean Pasternak, resident. I just want to recognize Charlie Van Burr for all his really hard work on the flood mitigation effort. We met him in the street 3 years ago, and he told us that he'd been working so hard trying to get his ideas through, and it's just really nice to see that you're actually making a real difference, so thank you. The other thing I wanted to say is I support Jeff's request for having input into this investigation. Lastly, I just want to read some of the myths about Millburn that someone submitted to the TAP. I think it was really good. This is regarding the affordable housing project at 75 units that Ben just spoke about and others as well. Myth number 1, many believe that getting out of the poorly negotiated plan to build a 75 unit, 100% income segregated housing project on the toxic DPW site will be too costly to township taxpayers. Fact number 1, while the town has not at this point spent more than the town attorney's fee on this issue, the cost of building the project would be many multiples more costly if the developer does not receive all the tax credits and grants they hope for. The current estimate of this cost to Millburn taxpayers could approach $50 million per the RPM plan. That figure includes a $4.7 million developer fee, quote, which is basically a thank you payment to developer RPM for taking on this project. Myth number 2, some people still believe that the Department of Public Works dump site is not toxic. Fact number 2, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, folks, but the DPW dump site is indeed toxic. Multiple borings by soil engineers discovered excessive amounts of arsenic, mercury, benzopyrene, and other polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. That's pretty good. Myth number 3, okay, so the dump is toxic. We can just cover it up or haul the toxins away, right? Fact number 3, whenever Milburn Township chooses to do to remediate the toxins while paying a multi-million-dollar bill to do so, our town, not the developer, will be responsible for any future adverse outcomes tied to the toxic contaminants on the site. Myth number 4. So this would be an incredibly costly undertaking with a huge potential future liability, but Milburn must fulfill its affordable housing obligation. Fact number 4, because the fight to overturn the dump project has received the most attention, many in town are unaware that 5 rental apartment buildings have recently been built or are in the works, all with affordable housing allocation. Myth number 5, there are no alternatives to the DPW dump site. Fact number 5, the Township Committee has presented alternative plans that will provide the same number of affordable units with additional workforce housing and lower per unit cost. So I guess, I still have 30 seconds. I want to say that I completely support the statement that Ben made tonight, the others here. I remember being in the courtroom when Judge Santamaro said to us, if you don't like what's going on, vote them out. This person that wrote this and these people in this room that spoke and others in the community, 65% of the voters last year, made it clear they don't want this project. Our town has a right to have what we want in our town and to plan our future. And I hope everybody will stay strong and fight this. Thank you.
Anyone else before we go online?
Hi, Carrie Heller, 56 Byron Road. I've raised this a few times with Alex more recently, and I'm going to ask it of counsel, but maybe of legal counsel. If I owned 100 apartments in town, and say I had 100 children in that complex, if I wanted to sell it to the town, or if the town so decided to sell that property to me for some dollar amount, and I was willing to compel by agreement to make this housing development, this 100 units, let's call it 2 bedrooms per unit, and I was willing to make that a fair share housing project. Is that a way or a means to accomplish this in the future? Now, why would an owner of a property do that? They don't only do that for an accommodation, probably for real estate taxes, perhaps even a town financing it at a lower interest rate. There's all sorts of different ways, and there may be 1 or 2 apartment complexes in the town where this can be done. I don't think it solves our immediate problem, but there's another round of fair share housing coming. So if that question could be answered, and Alex, I've raised this with you both in person and in writing, I'm curious to why I haven't gotten a response. Thank you.
Thank you. Go online. Good evening.
Good evening, Perry Urso, Short Hills. I didn't hear any reports. I'm not sure if perhaps I missed it from the Attorney Cantor regarding the Bear Properties litigation. I will state that our attorney had filed a recusal motion where within hours of the same day, Judge Russo transferred the case to another judge. Our attorney has submitted a proposed consent order memorializing the judge's actions and deeming our recused motion to be now deemed moot. To date, we yet have not heard back from the township regarding this. As a reminder, the township's trial brief and materials are due this coming Monday, October 21st, 2024. Since our attorney submitted our trial materials, we have since received documents by way of Oprah from the state of New Jersey and the township of Milburn supporting our arguments. Coincidentally, today, the appellate division issued a persuasive conflict of interest opinion supporting our case. I would suggest that you may wish to consider the 2 best practices inventory special improvement district questions that actually were provided in Attorney Feld's heads up email that I came across. Lastly, we respectfully request that the TC reconsider our May 7th, 2024 settlement proposal, because it is much better when we all can work together. Thank you and have a nice evening.
Thank you. Good evening.
And can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, but we can't see.
I'm sorry. There you go. Okay, I just want to thank Charlie Bambera for his work on the flood mitigation committee. It's awesome. Thank you so much. It's one of the #1 things that needs to be fixed. I also really, really have to shout out to Ben and Frank on the work on 9 Main Street. And Ben, your analytics on the 12 mil versus 50, spot on. It's all about being logical. I also want to point out that no one's done a strategic plan. What we're going to do with all these new incoming people that are going to be going into the school system. Are we rebuilding a whole new high school? Are we going to put trailers out? What's the plan? And what are the finances that we need behind that? Because that's something that's really important to understand. And I don't think it's being addressed. Maybe it is, but it's behind closed doors, possibly. I'm not sure. I also want to talk about just development in general. I actually went to the Chi Center hearing and will be attending the next one on November 6th. And I wanted to ask what the policy is in terms of the planning board, and maybe you guys can answer this for me. When somebody is doing a commercial property, which a house of worship is considered in real estate, and especially when it has a school attached to it, and they're doing it in clearly a deeded in an area with deed restrictions historically. If the planning board knows that there's deed restrictions on the property, why would they be hearing a hearing of, this is what we're going to do and this is what it's going to look like, et cetera? Like, I wouldn't even waste my time listening to that, because if it doesn't even meet those standards legally, I would like to understand that more, because I find that odd. And I also want to understand when somebody's allowed to demolish a building, do they have to have plans in place and approved by the planning board before they're allowed to demolish the building? Or are they just allowed to demolish the building? Because, somebody has to be pretty sure that they're going to get their plans through if they're demolishing $1 million building. You know what I mean? I mean, I wouldn't demolish $1 million building if I didn't have my plans approved. That seems not very savvy strategically. So I wanted to ask you about that. I think that's really, really important. And then I wanted to talk to you just a little bit about 5G. Not to get into it, but I did notice there's a new 5G pole close to the East Orange reservation, little brick building off of JFK Parkway. And I wanted to know, were people notified? Because I wasn't notified that it was going up. It really was sort of vaguely talked about. And when you guys put up a new 5G tower, what type of notification do you give people? Because there are ADA violations involved if somebody is EMF sensitive, and don't you think you should be giving them a year's notice so they can sell their house? And I wanted to understand that, because that isn't happening. And I also wanted you to look to Spring Lake, New Jersey. They've raised close to
Thank you, Ms. Best.
$5,000.
Sorry.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much. Have a good one.
Good evening.
Here we go. Sorry for the. Okay, Tom Hilder, longtime resident. I have a couple of questions regarding the affordable housing and the report that we had tonight. I think what's not being fully appreciated is that the foot that is on our neck is a result of our signing the settlement agreement in August, I think, of 2021. And what's being done here is that agreement is being enforced. And there were deadlines that certain things could have happened and we didn't do them and so forth. My question is, have we ever filed any kind of application, motion to vacate that settlement or modify that settlement, for example, on the grounds of newly discovered evidence or something else? We talk about the dump being toxic and so forth. Well, we're in 2024. That wasn't known in 2021, 2022, 2023. Is there been anything to do to get out from underneath the settlement? That's one question. With regard to Mr. Banish and his, contradictions when he was touring the site, did the township ever ask for a hearing on that? And I don't mean where the lawyers argue. I'm talking about taking testimony from Mr. Banish. There's obviously a conflict of facts that has to be resolved by people testifying. Did we ever ask for that? or did we contend not to? And thirdly, I know we made attempts to appeal, and it wasn't clear whether it was an interlocutory, a temporary order, or a changeable order, or a final order, meaning final as to all issues and all parties. We lost on both. It's not a final order, it's not an interlocutory order. So what can we do to appeal? What has to be done before this can be a final appealable order of right, that we have a right to go to the appellate division and not have to have the, what's standing between now and then? Those are my questions. Thanks.
Good ideas.
Thank you.
That's all online.
I will now close public comment. Committeeman Cohen, would you like to start?
Yeah, just when most of it was statements and some of it on affordable housing, I'll defer to Mr. Cantor. I would like to answer one of Ms. Best's questions in terms of demolition. There is no such rule that in order to demolish your house, you have to have plans for what's built. You're taking, I guess, the risk that you'll never get your plans through. The only restriction, and it is a new one that we just passed this year, is that if your house is on the historically designated on the master plan, that before you're allowed to demolish it, then they have to have the opportunity to write a report detailing what the historical significance is. But that's new, and that happened after 165 Old Short Hills Road, which was on the master plan, was already demolished. So that's the way it goes.
Committeeman Stiller.
Sure. All great points. You know, one thing I didn't bring up earlier in the beginning was I'm a business person. I've been in business for 30 years. The cost per unit that they're building is roughly $650,000 to $700,000 per unit. When I went out with Frank and the team here and we found a developer, we could do it for $350,000 per unit, sans rebates and such for workforce housing, et cetera. So, you know, I would never make an allegation, but you know, people would ask, where's that $300,000 going? Vendors, suppliers, rebates, $4.7 million developer fee. You know, people, inquiring minds want to know why that amount is so different. And you know, we have not had an answer to that. I'm not going to impugn or besmirch RPM, but I've seen their product. We'll leave it at that. And then also too, you know, the new two alternatives were full taxpayers versus the pilot program. So you know, I'm befuddled by the whole thing, and honestly, it makes me sick to my stomach. But this is part of the reason that I ran with Frank to get up here. We went in front of the court as Milburn concerned Milburn residents. And we wanted a voice at the table, and Judge Santamaro said, vote him out. Well, we voted him out, and now we want to say, and we weren't able to push this forward. Mr. Hildner had a lot of good questions. I could probably answer them, but I'll answer all of them, but I'll defer to our counsel to do that. Yeah, I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole right now, not being a lawyer. And then solicitation in front of our units at Trader Joe's. Yeah, I think that's something we have to look at and such as well. And then Mr. Heller, the 100 units, 100 kids, existing township, because I'll defer to council. But I believe there is an avenue to swap those out, but I think it's much more costly than we would think. But I'll defer to that. All right.
WB?
Sure. Ms. Cruz, you mentioned that you supported Carrie Heller's comments last meeting, and you know, we're asking why renovation as opposed to building a new building. So we actually looked at a few different scenarios, and one of them was building a new town hall, and it would have also had some additional space for the police. What we found is that the cost was higher. It would have required utilizing a different site. We don't have an abundance of available sites in our downtown area, and one of those sites that we could have used, we're still trying to use for the alternative for the affordable housing. So there wasn't really a good opportunity to build new. It was going to be more expensive, And quite honestly, the renovated version of this building is gonna meet all of our needs. And it's going to have additional space for the municipal court, so that will free up space at the police department. So, you know, what we don't wanna do is let perfect be the enemy of good. And I think our town has waited far too long to do this renovation, and costs have gone up considerably, you know, that's how it works. So it's time that we do something. We can't just sit there and wait for, you know, a perfect project to fall on our lap. So that's why we're going with renovation, or at least why I voted for it. Mr. Bambera, thank you for your comments. I doubt the judge was listening, but maybe you want to send her a letter or do an op-ed or something. That's your prerogative. Mr. Kirsch, I assure you, we are not doing away with term limits. Yeah, we're not Russia or China. That's not how we operate. Mr. Cosgrove, so the appointments were taken off the list because one of the appointments would not have had enough votes to pass. And so they wanted to wait until it had enough votes. I agree with you that we need to get moving on this committee, and I'm going to be working on scheduling the first meeting for all of the members that are already on the committee. And I think we probably can maybe invite the members that we know are going to be confirmed. I'll check into that, and if we can, then, you know, we'll do that. I think since it's a public meeting, we can do that. Mr. Feld, I understand you were never contacted about the Scrivo investigation. We just found out about that shortly before this meeting, so that's something we'll have to discuss in the closed session. We also have to read the report and digest it, so can't really comment on that. Let's see, Mr. Siebert, with regards to the panhandling, I do think that is something we should look into before it's a situation that gets worse. So Alex, maybe we can look into whether there's any laws there, or if they're, you know, harassing or intimidating people in any way, then we should obviously not allow that to happen. Let's see, Mr. Heller, there are options with the affordable housing laws to do rehab of existing units, and I think there's actually special credits that one can get there. Now, traditionally, there hasn't been a whole lot of interest in property owners coming forward and working something out, but you are a property owner. So if you have property, if you have property that you would like to talk to the township about making into affordable housing, then we should certainly have those conversations.
Excuse me.
This is not a time for discussion.
Excuse me, Mr. Heller, please, please.
So, the other thing that I think we need to do is do an inventory of all the existing apartments in town, figure out if there's any units there that are affordable, but weren't counted. And, you know, we can look to whether there's an opportunity for rehab. Let's see. Ms. Best, with regards to a strategic plan for students, that's a question for the BOE. It's my understanding that before, you know, a new school can get built, they have to actually have the students, you know, in the chairs. So that's why you tend to see trailers and, you know, municipalities have to be reactive, not proactive in that case, but it's definitely something to talk about with the BOE. Mr. Hildner, fantastic questions. As far as I know, I don't think that we've ever filed a motion to vacate. That's certainly something that it'd be great, you know, if it was an option, maybe we should certainly consider it, but I'll let council speak to that. As far as compelling Spanish to testify, I would love to know the answer to that. So I will defer to our attorney on that. And I too would like to know what, you know, constitutes a final appealable order. I feel like, you know, sometimes they move the goalpost on that, but again, if our attorney could address that, that would be helpful. Thanks.
I just want to add one thing that you said about, I don't think it's, I do support doing an inventory of all the rental units. I think that would be good information. We even talked about it when we considered putting forth a rent control ordinance, which we subsequently found out is prohibited by New Jersey, another great decision. I think that information would be useful. I don't think it's likely that we missed any, because in order to be candidates affordable, they would need to be deed restricted, and we would certainly know that. And to get them to be deed restricted would require the agreement of the current owner. So, but I do think having that knowledge of what the existing apartments are in town would be a benefit to all of us.
Mr. Cantor?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'll address Mr. Heller first. I'm sorry. I'll address Mr. Heller first. The deputy mayor is correct. It's right in UHAC. There is converting market rate to affordable is a possibility, and you do get bonus credit, a 1-for-1 bonus credit. That was third round and fourth round legislation. Maybe I misunderstood your question, but I think that was your question. That is the answer. Okay, then yeah, you can come back up at the end and ask it again. I'll try to answer it. As far as Bear property goes, it's ongoing litigation. I think it's kind of inappropriate to discuss ongoing litigation. You know, to the points raised, and I should be talking directly to the party, but she's here and her counsel's here. I know we had a mediation. I'm unaware of any settlement offer made at that mediation that she was referring to. So I'm not really clear as to what settlement offer we're going. Mr. McDonald also attended that. I'm unaware of any consent order that was offered to the township. I just rechecked my email. I didn't see it. And as to the motion to recuse, the township didn't oppose it. We just aren't in a position to make that decision for Mr. Feld, whether or not he believes that judge had a reason to recuse himself. The judge believed he had a reason to recuse himself, then Mr. Feld put papers in, and the court made that decision. The township doesn't know Mr. Feld's history in Orange and his history with the judge, and that some judge winked at him in some courtroom and all these things that he put in his papers about the FBI. The township has no knowledge of that. The township doesn't care if the judge is recused. So the township's of no position. We were going to review Mr. Feld's papers and take a position. As rightfully stated, when the judge got these papers, the judge transferred it. It's unclear if it was transferred for the purposes of deciding this motion or the case. But the township didn't oppose or join in. The township simply was waiting to understand the position of Mr. Feld. The township has no knowledge of Mr. Feld's legal history in Orange, so we took no position. So it wasn't like we got you. You said the judge shouldn't be recused, and was recused. The township was unaware of all these facts and took no position. So I just want to clear that up. And I also will say one thing, and I said it last night, and I'll say it again. I'm here as a professional representing the township. And what's clear to me is, and in this case especially, and it's an old saying in law, when you're weak on the law and you're strong on the facts, you pound the facts. And when you're weak on facts, you're strong on the law, you pound the law. And when you're weak on both, you just attack the other attorney. So that's exactly what's going on here. So weak law, weak facts, and I think it's obnoxious that personal attacks are coming my way. As to the affordable housing. So what the appellate division found, and we were trying to create a unique argument. You need a final judgment of repose from the court, which is the end result of your fair share housing litigation. We were taking the position, given the judge's order, that we had to build 9 Main Street, and that was the last item, that we were never going to get there, and that basically ended the case because there was nothing left to litigate. There was nothing left to decide. Courts have held that you have to continue to operate in your settlement agreement, but you can do things under protest and then appeal them. So I presume that the last 2 items that we had to accomplish were our redevelopment agreement and our pilot agreement. The redevelopment agreement was deemed approved. The pilot agreement, we still have some time under the court order to approve, which I understand probably where we're going with that, but that's the discussion for closed. I presume after those 2 items are completed, we can ask the court then for another hearing. The court stripped the township of its immunity, which we again thought would lead towards a final judgment. We did not get a written opinion from the appellate division, so it's unclear to us as to why they found it to be interlocutory, but we assume they found it to be interlocutory because we didn't have a final judgment of repose from it, which is typically the ending of a fair share housing litigation, but again, we don't think we could ever get there given the judge's order, so we took the position that this was a final order. We also believe it was proper for interlocutory order, given the $50 million price tag on the project and the amount of monies that are being expended. As to the settlement agreement, a few things. There was a fairness hearing. This is a different context than a typical contract case. There was a fairness hearing that the court held. The settlement agreement was deemed to be fair. As far as these change in circumstances, I presume he's referring to contract defense law. There is two contract defenses that I think he was referring to, which is a possibility of frustration of purpose, which is when circumstances change in a contract that the parties were unaware of at the time. The issue is the parties were aware of the contamination at the time they entered into the settlement agreement. In fact, the settlement, I don't want to make the argument on the other half, but the settlement agreement has in there that the parties are to look at, and if it's not feasible, there were dates in which the township had to determine if it was feasible or not, and those dates had passed. So all parties were aware of the contamination at the time they entered the settlement agreement. It wasn't an unknown factor, so I don't think that those two defenses would come into play. I don't know what else there is. As far as the testimony of the special master was present at the hearing. The court had every opportunity to swear him in and take testimony and decided not to. It's actually part of our motion to recuse. It's one of the main factors. We don't understand why that testimony wasn't taken. We think that testimony would have been beneficial to the township. We think there's an appearance of impropriety that it wasn't asked. I don't want to give away everything I'm going to argue, but again, as everybody's sitting here, it makes me as an attorney, I've been doing this for a long time. When one side says he said X, the other side said he said Y, and the person's sitting there and his job is to get up and tell the court what happened, I don't understand why the judge didn't ask him to just get up and say what happened. And again, it's part of our motion to recuse. Fair Share Housing wrote a letter that said it was a gotcha moment that we were reciting what Frank Banish said. Frank Banish wasn't out with his family in Milburn having dinner, and we overheard a conversation. He was walking the sites as part of his duty. We paid him, I think, right, Al? I'm sure he billed us to walk those sites. He was there as an officer of the court, as an appointed officer. Everything he said should have been admissible. That was why he was there. And for the court to simply say that, oh, it was a gotcha, he was just talking. He wasn't just talking. That was his job. That's what he was there for. That's what he was being paid to do. It made no sense. It's all part of our motion to recuse. I don't know if I hit all the questions. If anybody has any additional questions, I'm happy to answer them. But that's, I think these are all great arguments, and I wish there was a magic wand to make the settlement agreement go away. But I think we're going down as far a legal path as we can go.
Thank you.
Sorry, the fairness opinion, that was really the predecessor to vacate the settlement agreement. I just want to make sure we understand that.
So at the fairness hearing, Fair Share Housing Corporation and the township are on the same side. They're arguing they've come to an agreement and it's fair. And it's fair to low and moderate income housing, given our unmet need and what the settlement agreement fulfills. So at that point, we were pushing for, the township was there in a legal position that the agreement should be approved by the court.
And are any of those people still in town, to your knowledge?
Which people, I'm sorry?
The township committee that was on that team, as well as the manager of the planning.
Some are.
I think at least one. I mean, I don't know all the committee members. I know the planner
Okay,
has
it's
changed.
no longer here. Okay.
The professionals that were involved with that are no longer
Well, yeah, that's a professional.
employed in any capacity by this township.
And I said two things to go before you get to Alex. One is, Carrie, I'm still happy to walk the properties, which I've just been blasted at work and on 8 committees, so I'm being pulled in every direction. Happy to walk out. I could do it this weekend. And Mr. Hirsch, any insinuation of removing term limits after being here for 9 months cannot be further from.
I just mentioned what, I just said that I don't see the term.
Thank you, thank
I don't
you.
see those terms.
Okay, so I
We're
misunderstood.
gonna look at the
I thought-
website. No, we'll check out the website. We'll check the website. Mr. McDonald?
That's it.
Just a few things. One, Mr. Kirsch will check that out right away. And if they aren't there, it was obviously an oversight and we'll make sure that they're put up, much like the other committees. Ms. Cruz asked what the O'Toole Scrivo report was. Simply, this was, we were asked to investigate how the Milburn Township Municipal Court handled a citizen complaint by a city mayor at the time and whether they had done so properly. Mr. Feld asked about the HIF, and I'm happy to provide some insight into that. Currently the township's employees are their benefits are through the state health benefits program. The state health benefits program is looking at a 16.2% increase in premiums for the year 2025. They are also projecting a 10% plus for 2026. The township is making the decision to move to a health insurance fund, runs much like a joint insurance fund, that will help, while maybe not initially provide substantial savings, although there will be savings. Our entry percentage increase to that health insurance fund is 14%. As compared to 16.2%, it's about $230,000 savings. And however, what we are entering the health insurance fund for is rate stability, more control, more transparency for us as it relates to the administration of those benefits. And so that is the reason for this change. And as far as our collective bargaining units, we are obligated to provide a plan that is same or substantially similar to the plans that they are currently in without having to negotiate that change. So that is where we are with that, and that is why it is on the agenda. We have to provide a 60-day notice to the state health benefits program of our leaving their program. Just so happens tonight that we have our Chief Financial Officer, Matt Laracy. And if you just don't mind answering the question that Mr. Feld asked about the restatement of the $1.4 million. So nobody thinks that there's hopefully something nefarious going on.
No, so that was the 2021 audit did not, and prior year audits did not include the payroll agency account on our official book. So that's kind of like an in and out payroll account, right? We funded each payroll, the money's dispersed to the employees, and the money's dispersed for taxes, deductions, health deductions, retirement plans, et cetera. It's an in and out account. I felt it should be included in our audited financials. Our new auditors that year agreed. So that was why the restatement occurred.
Right. And that was changing the auditing firm as well.
Correct. That coincided with the change in the audit firm, also me arriving late 2021.
Yes.
So the previous one was restated for comparability, is that why?
Correct, yeah, because our audits show 2 years to compare, right? So it was included so that you can compare the 2 years, yep.
And for the record too, the finance committee, we went through the HIF analysis, and being an employer with many employees and such, the insurance premiums are literally out of control, across the country. And anything we can do to stabilize and or cap those as a township, we need to be on board to do. I only wish that there were some of these available to private employers.
And I think just to go back to Mr. Heller's question, although I think he was asking it a bit rhetorically, that I think this is a great sort of opportunity for the Citizen Advisory Committee on Affordable Housing to take a look at those apartment buildings, much to Deputy Mayor Saccomandi's point, that may be at a point in their useful life that they could require rehab, or that you could incentivize them through a larger transaction that, whether it's in tax rebates or in other types of creative avenues, to encourage them to have some of their property deed restricted, all of their property deed restricted, whatever it may be. But again, it's an opportunity for that committee to look at creative ways of how we, go forward with our affordable housing obligation. So I'm sure that's something that will be brought up in future meetings as well. Committeeman Cohen did a nice job of answering the question about having to have a plan in before going to the planning board and being approved before you demolish your house. If you think about it, if you bought the house next to you and you demolished that house and you just wanted it to be a vacant lot so that you could, have enjoyable, property, you wouldn't be required to have a planning board application approved prior to demolishing that house. And so there is no requirement to do so. In fact, some people tear down properties before they have a plan so that they don't have to pay taxes on the full freight, so to speak. So, and as far as the deed restriction question, I think that's more of a question for the planning board attorney. And that is all I have, and I will look into the concerns over Trader Joe's, although I think also it is incumbent upon the property owner to also make us aware of a concern of the situation.
Do we have any laws on the books?
We have soliciting, panhandling, yeah, it's all hawkers, peddlers, type of things.
Yeah, I should have jumped in, but the Supreme Court has ruled it's very hard to do panhandling and peddling. They have a First Amendment right to ask for money. There's been very few ordinances, if any, that have been upheld by the Supreme Court. Obviously, there's like the loitering and things of that nature, but it's almost impossible to stop people from panhandling.
I mean, it goes to the same sort of mindset of we've had, our own concerns over soliciting door to door, and we've made hopefully what are appropriate changes to that ordinance that will help with that, but it will never eliminate the ability to or the concern, some of the concerns over door to door solicitations.
But, as a parent, I'm the only one up here with a 13-year-old daughter, too, we have to monitor what's going on. And if it's loitering or whatever, and just making sure that the town is safe.
Yeah, no, agreed. And again, and maybe that's a great conversation for the community policing unit to have with Trader Joe's, see how things are going, whether this is becoming a problem, what, maybe when they should be contacting them or what it might be, just to not make it a more contentious issue than it needs to be.
Essex Street one way, do you have anything?
No, so currently we received our traffic studies back. The Christine Bugle is, and so I think there's a sort of an interplay with that, the two-way circulation. But she's reviewing those responses, and then I hope to discuss that with the Township Committee at some point regarding those responses and what direction we want to go as far as traffic concerns, the traffic study, whatever it might be. But just waiting for her analysis of that response.
Thank you. Okay, the Township Committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. Are there any comments from the committee in regard to any items listed on the consent agenda? May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-231 through resolution 24-243, which are listed on the consent agenda?
So
May I have a second? Roll call vote.
Repeat who first and second?
Oh, Michael and
I think it was better.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
affirmative.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy,
Yes.
Mayor Romano.
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the committee in regard to resolution 24-237 as revised? May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-237?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the committee in regard to resolution 24-238 as revised? May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-238?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the committee in regard to resolution 24-242 as revised?
Actually, I just Can you just ask Mr. Cantor to explain the purpose of what we were note?
A developer's agreement is here to protect the township. It's an agreement between township and developer to those conditions and what was agreed to at the planning board, and the planning board resolution memorializes and gives remedies to the township if the developer doesn't do what they're obligated to do pursuant to the planning board. So this property had already gotten site plan approval. It's already gotten all its approvals. It's the last step.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-242?
So,
May I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, ordinance 2691-24, Deputy Mayor Sakamandy, you are scheduled to sponsor.
We'd like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2691-24. An ordinance of the Township of Milburn, County of Essex, authorizing the Township of Milburn to execute an easement agreement granting an easement and right of way on property located at 521 Milburn Avenue, Milburn, New Jersey. So brief explanation. So there's a property that's in bad shape. The owners of the property want to do something with that property. Obviously, it'll be an improvement over what's there. But in order to do so, they need a small easement so that they can have cars park. So it's a very small piece of road they need an easement on. And that's the purpose of this ordinance. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law on the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, November 12th, 2024.
Can I just interject, that there should just, when it is published, if it is approved, that Milburn should be changed to Short Hills, because that is in Short Hills, New Jersey, 07078. Okay.
Good. May I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Committeeman Cohen, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2690-24.
Yes, I present for consideration an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2690-24, bond ordinance to authorize the town hall renovation and addition project in by and for the Township of Milburn in the County of Essex, State of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $14,500,000 to pay the cost thereof, to make a down payment, to authorize the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds. Tonight is the time set for public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open.
Carrie Heller, 56 Byron. Just for the public's edification, this is authorization, it's not funding. It's not the ordinance or the creation of the construction of the building. But in 2000, I may be off a year, Alex, you can, somebody correct me, 2015-16, Complete Streets did a similar sort of thing. And we rushed through a project, we authorized, I believe it was $8.2 million, of which about $7 million was spent after. Once you authorize something, it sort of becomes a self-fulfilled prophecy. Once it goes out there, it's out there, and we continue to act upon it, whether it's this 14.5 or whether it's just a new building. I would hesitate to do this tonight. I think it's too early, it's too soon, it's not necessary right now. And to follow the Complete Streets model, we rushed through something, a certain council member, 2 members, without, you can call it, Frank, your due diligence. They said they did due diligence, they had meetings, you weren't here. We begged, several of us, we begged. Alex was around certainly at the time, we begged, don't do this. And they rushed it through, they got it done during the summer, destroyed Main Street, eliminated left-hand turn, circulation, left us with a boondoggle on East Milburn Avenue, which still, all these years later, has not been fixed. You know, I or the new council coming in, or combination of both, stopped the continuation of that project. That 8.2 was going to lead to another $10 to $20 million to be spent because it needed to go up Milburn Avenue, up and around, and all the way come back down Essex Street. We don't have hard enough costs, and I'll speak a little bit later as to, again, Frank, you're addressing the micro issues of this building renovated versus what you think you've done. You've been here for a few years. There are all sorts of other locations and possibilities. We're carrying another property right now down on Main Street, off Main Street. There are other possibilities and other considerations. I wasn't consulted. I'm not the know-it-all with this, but there are other people that even know more than I do. Renovating this building is an open sore to be exposed, and I can tell you that from Charlie Brown's or any of the number of buildings that I've renovated. It's not the perfect thing to do here. It's not necessarily the right location. It doesn't have to be perfect, as you referenced. Don't believe in perfect. It has to be best possible. There's time to still look at that. When I say financially, I have no financial interest in it. Actually, I do, because the architect is my tenant in Maplewood. Coincidentally, I have nothing to do with it. I may lose a tenant as a result of this project not being done right now, just for what he's doing. My incentive in this is to see that Alex and his staff get a good building in the best possible location, and we, the downtown, get the best thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jerry Kung, Short Hills resident. Thank you, Mr. Heller, for speaking out. I just have one question. What is the harm in, say, delaying this by a month? Because I know, earlier this year we had the paper mill ordinance, which my personal opinion passed way too quickly. And then, people came out after they heard about it passing, and then, people didn't realize, and then the excuse was made, well, maybe it's not the greatest idea, but it's already done. So I just want to, prevent us from getting into that situation again. So just a pretty simple question. I certainly don't know as much about potential opportunities for town hall, but if someone's standing here saying, hey, put a pause on this, give it 30 days, see what we can come up with. I certainly don't see the harm in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If you.
There's one online.
Oh, go ahead. There's one online.
Tom Hilder, I just have some follow-up, and I thank Mr. Cantor for answers that he gave to the questions I raised, but
This is
my-
only, I'm sorry, but this is only for the bond that we're doing right now.
Oh, all right, my
You can
mistake.
call back later,
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you. All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
So I move that the public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law.
So just so the public is aware, we have had a number of info sessions on this. This project is not a new project. It's something that has been talked about for quite some time. There's been multiple opportunities for public input. And, whenever you have a large infrastructure project like this, there's always going to be some in town that want to delay it for one reason or another and say, well, let's go back to the drawing board, let's rethink things. At a certain point, we have to make a decision. And this building right now is literally in some places falling apart. So we cannot afford to wait, because if we continue to wait, we're going to have to address the issues with this building, and that's going to be throwing good money after bad. So I'm going to disagree with you, Dr. Kung. I think we should move forward with this. I think we've talked about it. We've had a lot of public input. And this is just a project that we have to do. With infrastructure projects, sometimes you have to make a decision. So That's why it's up for a vote tonight.
Yeah, I'd also like to make the point, making this analogous to the complete streets is a false equivalence in my mind. It's completely different projects with different underlying circumstances, et cetera. I don't know if a lot of people know, but part of this building is historical, and the historical committee was involved in this decision. The first question I asked was the cost benefit analysis of building a new building, of putting it here, putting it somewhere else, understanding the different gives and takes of what it looked like. It's significantly more expensive to build a new building, especially with this part of it being historical. Going through the analysis, through many, many hours with the team here and with the planner and with the public information that was made available, as you most rightly put it, Mr. Heller, this is the authorization of the bond, et cetera, et cetera. So keeping the train on the tracks, as I say, I think is a good thing. And to make sure that we're moving it forward, because, right now this is squalor. You look at the surrounding towns of Livingston, Summit, Maplewood, everyone's increased, enhanced, rebuilt their infrastructure for the town halls. We are severely behind that timeline.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes. Okay, so we have nothing for new business, old business, new business, Mr. McDonald?
Yes, just bringing to the township committee's attention, they're all kind of in the same vein. Whether it's the proposed zoning ordinance for definitions as well as the proposed fee ordinance and traffic ordinance. As is customary, just making sure that it is under new business for some brief discussion. The committee was provided a memorandum by the planner regarding the proposed ordinance amendment for front yard setbacks. As you may recall, last year, we had made a change to the way that prevailing front yard setback would be calculated. After a year of sort of going through this and having some practical application of it, it has been determined by the zoning subcommittee to put that back to the way it was. And so again, you have the explanation from Mr. Petto in his memorandum about changing that back to reduce confusion and some unintended consequences from that change last year. It is still an item of discussion, but I think look, we can all say lessons learned. I think that going forward, we are going to run parallel for things like this, run parallel when we look to make a change to a calculation or to implement something, run that parallel in that we're doing that for a while before we make an introduction. But again, that first reading will be on for November 12th to put that prevailing front yard setback back. Just moving on to the fee ordinance and the traffic ordinance. We have, unlike other communities, all our fees for different things, recreation, parking, uniform construction code, zoning, all those things are spread all throughout our general code. Many communities will have a dedicated fee ordinance that sort of shows all of those things in one place. It makes for a lot less confusion for those people that are using those types of services and need to understand the fees, but also makes the ability to change those fees and those fee structures a lot easier for the township committee. So we have pretty close to completion a fee ordinance that would put all of our fees that are spread throughout the code into one fee ordinance, one central location. There is no proposed fee changes. Again, parking fees are going to stay the same, but there are a few within the UCC codes based on practicality of in having discussions with the construction department that they would like to see amended. So those will be noted in the ordinance and the memorandum to the Township Committee on. As far as traffic, Chapter 7, which governs basically anything related to traffic, related to parking within the Township of Melbourne, generally each year requires some sort of revision. And so we hold it for the end of the year, and so that we can gather all of those changes all at once. Some of those changes include the implementation of making sure that crosswalks are designated within the code, changing some parking that has been problematic or needs to be updated or wasn't updated in at previous times and gets discovered as you receive complaints about it. So that will be a pretty lengthy change to that ordinance. So it does take some time to compile, but I'll have that for the Township Committee in short order prior to the November 12th meeting. And so that, but that's generally what those things are. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Anyone have any questions?
So they'll be on for first reading at the November 12th meeting, but out to the Township Committee prior enough that you can ask questions of any of the changes that are being made.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, public comment. This public comment period is to allow for final comments from the community. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and whether you're a Millburn resident and or a property or business owner. Do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and readily available to the public. A reminder that in order to help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. I will now open the comment.
My name is Jeffrey Feld. I live in the poets section for more than 32 years. We live in an alternative universe here. Why would I get a letter from Mr. Cantor dated May 13th rejecting a settlement if he said there was no settlement proposal? I don't know. That's a piece of evidence that's in the court. Sometimes veracity, it's always, I have no veracity, I have no integrity, I'm incompetent. I think you need to look at yourselves. As to fair share housing, I still do not understand why the township has not obtained and posted all hearing transcripts beginning with September 17th, 2021. The fairness hearing, the motion where the town objected to the intervention by concerned Melbourne residents, and a declaratory judgment action where by statute, we're all interested parties. And why they did not get the conditional compliance hearing. The fairness hearing is very important for people to listen to. It was virtual. Judge Garner denied myself, and this gentleman over here, David Cosgrove, an opportunity to question the experts, that being our planner, and Mr. Banish. If you look at the statute about declaratory judgments, I had the same standing as Fair Share Housing Center. Why wasn't I ever able to answer questions? In my motion to determine my interested party status, I listed 18 questions that have never been answered. I just wanted the court to say, let Mr. Banish and let our planners answer one of these questions. Because one of the things we're talking about is when we talk about contracts, formation, this is not a contract between private parties. It involves public parties. This is the public. They were not notified of the terms of the settlement till after it was approved. There are cases out there. I have a case that's going up to the appellate division that in 2021, when Ms. Prupis was our mayor, our rights were suppressed. I had to sue to get the right to speak again for all these people in this room. And now I'm told I'm incompetent. I have no integrity. The question is, if one thing I suggest, everyone, you want the judge to recuse, you have the right, if you own property, to write to court because you're an interested party in a declaratory judgment action. In a declaratory judgment action, the court cannot issue coercive remedies. We have not yet made that argument.
Thank you.
Charles Bambara, 27-year resident of Milburn Short Hills. There is a potential for new information about the site. I'm not going to disclose that publicly, but I will write a letter to the Township Committee, and I'd be happy to meet with you privately. I'm a chemical engineer with 52 years of experience, and there's an opportunity to have new information to vacate that agreement. And I'd like to offer my assistance in helping you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Jay Morielli, resident. First want to thank all the TC members for their service to the community. Thank you. 3 points real quick. Number one is I fully support moving forward with the renovation of this building. As I've said before, I've been to many municipal buildings across the state. Ours is definitely a lower tier building, and it's time something be done. Kicking the can down the road is not going to solve any problems. So please move ahead full steam. Number two, regarding the setback ordinance for front yards, I raised concerns about that a year ago when it was brought forward. I'm glad it's being reconsidered. And I hope it gets returned back to its previous state. Finally, regarding Mr. Kirsch's comments that the website no longer includes the term expiry dates. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm assuming it's just an oversight, and I don't know how anybody could interpret his comments to mean that the terms have been eliminated. So thank you, Mr. Kirsch.
Thank you.
Dean Pasternak, one last comment. I've been so impressed this year with all of you working together, and I'm a little disappointed, and I do support Dave Cosgrove's call to get this committee going on affordable housing. We have a lot of work to do. This is huge. There's so much to learn and to deal with. So I just don't understand why this didn't go forward. It's not like what you've done before this year. So it's a little puzzling.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jerry Kung. Just a minor thought, and thank you, Mayor, for bringing up the pedestrian safety advisory board. PSAB. I think this has been brought up before, but just wanted to follow up again. Is there any sort of restrictions on the electric scooters that kids are, riding around on in town? Just today I was waiting to make a left turn onto Milburn Ave from Short Hills Ave. Busiest, like one of the busier intersections in town at 5 o'clock, trying to get to my haircut on time. I did wait like probably 6 stoplights before I could make that left turn. But while I was waiting there, I didn't have a left turn signal, but it's green, and then you get a left, or I think it starts that you get a left turn signal and then it turns green. So opposing traffic was coming north on Short Hills Ave, and they can make a right turn. And so in that sort of crosswalk between, you're on the high school side of Milburn Ave and you're crossing Milburn Ave you're crossing up in the direction of Short Hills Ave. You have a do not walk sign when it's green. And I saw a kid riding a scooter on the sidewalk up to that intersection, saw the do not walk sign, and then he sped through the crosswalk. And I was thinking, those things go pretty fast. People making a right turn pretty quickly. He could have been hit. So I don't know if that's part of pedestrian safety in terms of, educating the children in the community that you have to follow the street signs when it says do not walk, do not walk. So I don't know if that can be incorporated because, God forbid something terrible happens. Also I was making a left turn. So sometimes, you try to make that left turn, just something that came to mind. Streets are getting busier. I know everyone's concerned about that. So just let's try to be ahead of the 8 ball on this. Thanks.
Thank you.
Janet Pizar, Main Street. Mayor Romano, earlier today you made a report about studies that were done for speed limit compliance on certain specific streets. And I would like to request that such a study be done on Main Street. It's not so much northern Main Street that I'm concerned with because there are two lights, Rector in Maine and Milburn Avenue in Maine, that control some of the flow. I don't know exactly how those lights are timed, but it seems the traffic is forced to slow down and not make both those lights at the same time. However, southern Main Street from coming over the bridge on Springfield, I have to say, I've seen speeders that look like they might be going 50 miles an hour in a 25-mile-an-hour zone. And I think that's very concerning. I have to say, last week, for the first time, I saw a police officer issue a speeding ticket on Main Street, and that pleased me very, very much. I think there needs to be much more enforcement. The other thing is, I just want to mention that for several years now, there has been panhandling in the Vauxhall parking lot where Staples is locating. That's been going on for a while in the parking lot, not so much outside the doors. And I also just want to say that yesterday I saw my second homeless person in Milburn. I don't know if that's a common sighting or if this is something new, but it was just yesterday I saw my second person. Thank you.
Thank you.
Debbie Frank, Milburn Avenue, just about the panhandling. I don't live that far from Trader Joe's, so I've been there a couple times a week, I would say. And I did see one small family. I just wanted to let you know, I don't know that even Traders or even Petco would necessarily be aware of it. It was not in front of the doors. It was on the edge of the parking lot right by Walnut Street. And they were just sitting there with a sign. So I don't know if that's the same family or if that's the same location, but it's very possible they're not even aware that it's happening.
Carrie Heller. Michael, I think you were answering my question directly the first time I spoke, but with regard to the apartments, Alex, I think you explained it a little bit better. And Jared, you're certainly familiar in other towns where towns have established their own housing authorities and built their own units. If we, by example, to simplify for your micro examples versus my macro, if we bought an apartment complex and over a period of years with deed restriction, everybody's sort of touched on this, but again, limited amount of time, it's hard for me to expand. So anytime anyone wants to learn a little bit more, I think you all have the avenues to learn more. It is a possible thing for us to do, and it's not just for the renovation, it's to basically deed restrict. In essence, we could buy a complex at 2-3%, demolish it and build something bigger, and we control it. A lot less cost, as you referred to, $350,000 instead of $600. Right? End of that point. I hear a lot of conversation. Everybody thinks they know everything. Listen, I'm around a long time, doesn't mean I know everything. But regarding traffic, does anybody know anywhere in town on a local kind of road where there's a passing zone, double, 2 different locations on the same street? We all go by, unless you've had it happen to you, and one of them is the most crazy places of all to happen, on White Oak Ridge Road. You're certainly on White Oak Ridge Road. Jerry, you're on White Oak Ridge Road. A lot of us are. There are 2 passings that have been there forever until you've been out. I'm out at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night coming back from meetings. Until you've been passed by someone, the kids cross there. It's a disaster for years. It's been there for years. But that, whether it's train drop off, whether it's double driveways on the Chatham Road parking lot, we're putting 2 new double driveways in the new Chatham development, which shouldn't be there. There are so many different things to be done, and you got your committees. But go out to residents, Diane, talks about trees. Lots of people have lots of thoughts, and some people are crazy, some are eccentric, some just have ideas. But to get out of the committees, right? Miss the committees in participation, but I participated on town hall for a lot of years, long before this. It's a sunk decision, not yet. There's still time. Somebody has the cure for cancer. Let's take it. You haven't expressed an interest in knowing, I think I have a better place to put it. Alex has his reason and good reasons why it should be done now. Your reasons are good, but to go and do it because, oh my God, if we don't do it now, we're not going to do it is not a good enough reason. we spent a lot of money on a lot of different things, including the two-way traffic. And I think most people, and I'm up here, most of you will talk to me. I mean, that's not why I stand up here to talk. It's to get it onto the record for the public. Melbourne Avenue and Essex Street were two-way streets once upon a time. I have the photograph of it. It's there. It should go back to it, if it should go back to it, but the studies need to be done to determine whether it works. And it goes for the left-hand turns or anything else. I'm happy to talk to anyone and share any of my experiences and knowledge.
Thank you.
And that I won't overstay.
Online.
Good evening.
Hi. Tom Hilder, just a couple of points in response to the affordable housing and the discussion by Mr. Cantor. Seems to me we have two things that are major problems for us. One is the settlement, one is the Banish report. Let's take the Banish report for a second. We learned that Mr. Banish was given an opportunity to weigh in on the alternatives of 9 Main Street or other properties we later suggested. And that on the hearing, he was in court. And my question was, when he was in court, and since we take the position that he contradicted himself, that his opinion's unreliable for any number of reasons, perhaps, did we ask for him to be called? He was sitting right there. Did we say, Judge, put Mr. Banish on the stand? I would like to cross-examine him. But what we've done is, because the judge didn't do that, the judge didn't say, I'll call Mr. Banish, that's bias on her part, even though we didn't, perhaps, ask her to. The second question is, does that really make a difference? Is there not an argument that she was obligated to call him to justify any decision, whether we asked for or not, because there was a dispute of fact? And there's an answer to that I don't have off the top of my head. The second one is the settlement agreement. What we know now is we signed the settlement agreement. We went to court and asked the court to accept the settlement agreement, to approve the settlement agreement. So what are our answers then? Is the orders inconsistent with the settlement agreement? In other words, you're enforcing a settlement agreement but doesn't provide for the orders. Are we arguing that? We don't seem to yet be arguing that it should be modified or vacated for some reason, or a suggestion that maybe circumstances have changed at the site. One of the gentlemen just brought that up. And another question is, even if we got a recusal of the judge, if they're enforcing the settlement agreement and we can't get out from underneath it, what difference is that going to make? Some judge is going to do something different? So these are questions that I think we have to face up to, because we need to know where we're going in this case and what the chances of success are. And we can rail against the judge, but if she's enforcing the settlement that we ask her to enter, and we don't have a way to get around that, and perhaps we do, then where are we left? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey. Okay, I was just going to finish up earlier, so thank you so much for the extra opportunity. I wanted to just shout out to Dave Cosgrove on pushing for that Affordable Housing Committee to go ahead. I think he's very smart about that, and I hope you listen to him. Alex, thank you so much for explaining on tear downs. There was some information that was extremely helpful for me that I didn't really think about, so thank you. I do think, though, that there should be code built around tear downs, because a lot of times builders go in and they trash the place and leave it like sitting in a total state of chaos with, fence around it for 3 years. And imagine if you're living in, your home and you have to deal with that. So I do think that I hope the Township Committee and the Planning Board might look at visiting that. But thank you again for educating me. I really appreciate it. I want to talk about 5G really quickly. So in Spring Lake, I know quite a bunch of people down there because I'm an avid surfer and I spend a lot of time on the beaches there. And they have thwarted putting in 5G antennas on every single block on the boardwalk. I mean, can you imagine? They're hideous looking. Besides the fact that they're ugly, Can you imagine you're trying to like be calm and you have EMF frequencies actually raining down on you while you're trying to be on the beach? And they already have good cell service there, so I don't really know why they're doing that. But I want to point out to you, because no one tells me about the 5G stuff, and our town's like, oh, we can't do anything about it. But Rep. Chris Smith, I know he's a Republican, but he's putting legislation through to give more control to towns. And also individuals have control. So what Spring Lake is doing, they're using their 150 citizens that have complained about it. That's a lot of people to actually work with RFK Jr.'s attorneys. They've actually come in now, along with the town of Belmar, to fight Verizon. And they've also put in ordinances not allowing 5G antennas in certain locations. So you do have control. And our town's choosing not to have control and not being transparent. And I want to remind you that some people have serious EMF frequency issues, and there's going to be ADA violations for people that are educated enough to know that. And you need to have cell towers 1,500 feet away from living residences. So really think about that, because everybody's blowing this issue off and it's really going to come to a head, and there's lots of towns getting on board with it. So I just want to throw back that to you. And then I also wanted to ask, going back to the Chi Center application that's going to be coming back up on November 6th, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was in that meeting, after the meeting, there was a lot of intimidating of witnesses by the applicant, and there's multiple people that felt that way, including myself. And that was concerning to me. And I also want to talk to you, about the deed restrictions again, because it's very clear that this is a class 2. I read the deed, actually. There's nowhere in the deed that it says, oh, we banish the deed restriction.
Thank you, Ms. Best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice night. Thanks, Annette.
Good evening, Perry Urso. Hey, I'm right side up. I'd like to say thank you all of you on the dais tonight. And I'm sorry Ms. Prupus isn't here, but it's just very nice and refreshing to see that this entire body is working in a nonpartisan way. So, and you're looking out for the best of the town. Mr. Stoller, I appreciate all your efforts, joined by Mr. Sacramenti, and hopefully that it'll go forward with your efforts. All due respect to Mr. Cantor, I don't think anybody is discrediting or trying to any way, but I am pretty, and I'm sure you all are, because there's about 67 recipients on most of Attorney Feld's emails. So if you haven't had a chance, I would respectfully ask that you take the moment to look through, I believe it was October 10th or October 11th email sent from Attorney Feld regarding the Bear Property Management, and exactly what happened and what transpired with the request of recusal. And going back to October 1st, Deputy Mayor Sacramenti's comments regarding who's making these decisions and if they're brought to the TC. So if you could answer the question is, does the attorney have the full authority to respond on behalf of the TC, or does the TC have to be consulted prior to any? Because if you take a moment and look at a certification, not only filed and signed by Attorney Feld, but also I'll hold up by myself, that I am subject, and I signed this, I'm subject to punishment. That in the certification states that I was aware and I was instructed, and the recusal was refused immediately. So I think if we could have some type of clarification what the process is with this, I think that, it would shine some light on any type of confusion. And I'm happy to forward this email to the entire TC and Mr. Cantor, just in case you did miss it. But I know sometimes people think that, Mr. Feld is overwhelming us with emails. But however, if you take the time, some of that information should not be discredited and taken mildly. And truthfully, I would, if I were a township member, consider taking up this fine gentleman's offer. Thank you so much and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. I'll close public comment. Do you want to start, Mr. Field? Do you want to start? No?
I have a few. To Mr. Felda, I don't think anyone's called you incompetent and that you lack integrity. And I read everything you send through, and I do appreciate that. For Mr. Hildner and a couple other folks, let's not be unburdened by what has been. Fresh perspectives, times have changed. Township, when we're appointed to Township Committee, we have a responsibility to do what's best for the town under the Constitution of New Jersey that we swore an oath to, as well as the United States of America. As we work forward, I just know that we can't afford not to fight this fight because it's the right fight. And I appreciate everybody's efforts in coming out and spending a few hours with us. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to the affordable housing appointments, like Deputy Mayor said earlier, we did not have consensus on all the appointments, so we are going to take care of it at the next meeting. But the meetings are open to the public, so whenever they begin, I'm sure the Deputy Mayor will let everyone know, and you're welcome to be there. And the electric scooters, do they follow the same rules as bicycles?
Depends on the speed, depends on the speed of the vehicle.
So that's something we could talk to the schools about.
Yeah, and I forgot to bring that up.
Yeah, we could talk to the schools about that, and also the chief with the speed limit on Main Street.
I'll mention it to them.
I think that's a. Deputy.
Sure, so Mr. Feld and Ms. Urso, I do recall there being some sort of, now whether it was technically a settlement offer or some sort of proffer, I do know we were presented with a proposal from your side. It was discussed in closed session, and there was not consensus to adopt that. The majority decided to continue on with the case. So I just wanted to put that out there, I don't know if Mr. Cantor spoke or if settlement agreement is not the right term, but that was brought to us. It wasn't, that Mr. Cantor was making a unilateral decision. It's something that we discussed. Let's see. Ms. Best, I think you raised some interesting questions about the deed restrictions. I think that's definitely something you should bring to the planning board, as that's the appropriate body to be looking at that or handling that. I know that in the past, when there's been stuff going on in that area, deed restrictions came into play, so there's some history there. So definitely bring that to the attention of the planning board.
Before you go on, I would also add to bring to the planning board that was the intimidation that you felt. I think
Yes,
that's,
absolutely.
also significant. But that is the place to bring that, not here, but tomorrow the planning board will be in session.
Correct. With regards to the electric scooters, perhaps that's something that we can have the experts weigh in on when we do the townwide traffic study. It's my understanding that right now the proposals have gone to the DPW or Ms. People. Okay. Do we have estimation of when that review will be done?
It should be very shortly. And again, I'd like to sort of discuss the path forward with yourself and maybe the other committee members, given the responses and her analysis.
Because maybe the time to address some of these pedestrian safety things, if we're doing, if we decide to go forward with it, which I hope we would. Let's see. I think Mayor Romano addressed the issue of the committee appointments. I will try and get that scheduled. We're going to be meeting via Zoom, so that makes it very easy for all to watch. I guess I'll let Mr. McDonald know, and maybe that get posted to the website. So for those of you that are interested to watch the meeting, you'll be able to do so. I think that's all I have. Thanks.
Yeah, just real quick, as far as the electric scooter goes and Dr. Kung's comments about that intersection, I think one is there are state laws passed in terms of how you're allowed to operate those types of vehicles. A lot of it depends on the speed of the vehicle, electric bikes, electric scooters. And one of the difficult parts of that is obviously when our kids are riding those scooters or bikes, you know, the enforcement of that can get very tricky. One in particular, are they wearing a helmet? I'm not sure in your case whether they were. All right, good. But certainly it's something that we can continue to discuss with the schools and the police department. And again, I hate to keep throwing stuff on the community policing unit, but this is also a really good opportunity for them to educate the kids about the operation of those. And to your other point about the left-hand turn signal, this is a condition that happens not only in Melbourne, in quite a few places, but everywhere else, is that when there is a dedicated left-hand turn, that hand will stay raised and tell people not to walk, but people only go based on the flow of traffic, and they say, oh, well, the traffic is flowing, therefore I'm allowed to cross, and that is not necessarily the case. So that is another education point. And so I agree with you there, and probably something that, you know, whether we have specific information put out, you know, from on our channels and different things like that in the schools, I think that's important. And then just to Mr. Heller's point about the passing zones on White Oak Ridge Road, you know, at times I don't know whether the county even realizes that they still have those, or whether they find them necessary anymore. And so maybe it's just a quick conversation or a quick heads up to them about it and the concerns over it. Because a lot of times when roads are repaved and restriped, they just go with what was there previously and they restripe it accordingly. So that's all I had.
To add to that, Alex, for the community service, I was on the scooter issue. 3 kids on a scooter, one scooter, going like a bat out of hell down the sidewalk. So I think for the community policing too, and the schools, maybe 1 rider per scooter as well.
That's always advisable, yeah.
Do I have a motion to adjourn? Second. Good night, thank you.